everyone. It's your good friend Wendy, and you're listening to the Reaching Out with Reach podcast. This is the show that brings you discussions and topics surrounding our community, prevention, and recovery. On today's episode, we have Heidi and Ashley with us to discuss self-care and maybe give us some tips.
Hi, this is Ashley. I'm the Assistant Director of School Programs here at Reach Council.
Hey, this is Heidi, and I'm a Youth Prevention Specialist here at Reach Council as well.
Today we're going to talk about some self-care tips, the importance of why self-care is necessary, and also some tips that you can use for your self-care.
Yeah, obviously everybody's heard of self-care by now. It's become something very commonly talked about, but it is not any less important. It's very much something that still needs to be on our radar, and it can be done in many different ways, like learning something new. It can also help calm you if you're just feeling a little overwhelmed. It also can be useful to have something that can help you de-stress and unwind. So, there is a lot of stigma around self-care now, I think, but there are so many different ways to practice it. And self-care is important to not let us become something that's cliche or a buzzword that doesn't have any meaning. We must take care of ourselves, and we cannot put our needs on the back burner. We are all made out of body and in mind, and we must take care of both. So today, Ashley is going to tell you a little bit about some things she's been researching.
So I looked on the National Institute of Mental Health, and there are 8 self-care tips that they recommend. The first tip is to get regular exercise, so about 30 minutes every day. And that can vary depending on what you like to do. You can take a walk, you can go swimming. You also don't have to do all 30 minutes at the same time. You can do 10 minutes in the morning, 10 at lunchtime, 10 in the evening. You can break it up however you see fit, but just making sure to take time to get some exercise throughout the day. The second tip is to eat healthy, regular meals and also to stay hydrated. Now, I struggle with staying hydrated, drinking enough water. I feel like a lot of people struggle with that. But just making sure to keep a water bottle with you, and also to plan balanced, healthy meals. The third tip is to make sleep a priority. So stick to a schedule. I know I'm guilty of staying up way too late sometimes, and then having to get up early for work or other obligations. So just make yourself go to bed at an appropriate time. Also, turning off devices like laptops and phones ahead of bedtime, because the blue light from those can make it harder to fall asleep. So giving yourself that time to unwind before you fall asleep. The fourth tip is to try a relaxing activity. So again, that kind of varies depending on what people like. It can be listening to music, it can be reading or journaling, spending time in nature. So again, just walking or, water is one of those things that is also very calming and relaxing. Engage in low stress hobbies. So whatever it is that you enjoy, and that's the key, is that it should be something you enjoy. You don't want to force yourself to do things. You don't want it to become a stressor, right? You don't want to feel obligated to do something. You want it to be something that you enjoy and that you look forward to doing. The next tip is to set goals and priorities. So figure out, what can be done later and what you need to get done sooner. So I know for me, sometimes I get kind of caught up in I need to do the laundry and I need to wash my dishes and I need to clean my room and, all these things I need to help my son with his school project or whatever else is going on, and you feel weighed down with all these things you feel like you have to do. But I've really had to kind of retrain my brain and go, okay, the sky's not going to fall if I don't do my laundry tonight. I can put it off till tomorrow, and I can take time to watch a TV show for 30 minutes and give myself a break, or just, take a nap or something. I didn't used to be a nap person. I've started taking more naps these days. So that goes back to that getting enough sleep. But learning your priorities is helpful, because you can de-stress a little bit when you're not weighed down with all the things you have to do. The next tip they have is to practice gratitude. So remind yourself daily of things that you're grateful for. You can write them down or just think about them mentally. But sometimes when we take the time to focus on the positive, which is actually their next one, I feel like they kind of go together, those two tips. Focus on positivity and practice gratitude. Again, just retraining your brain to think positively, to think about the good things that you have going on in your life. Because I think that's another thing that stresses us out sometimes is, again, feeling weighed down and stressed, and it makes you grouchy or irritable. So taking that time to go, okay, things aren't really that bad. I have this going on that's positive. I have that going on that's good. So just taking time to, be grateful. I know we tend to do that more around Thanksgiving, practicing giving thanks and everything, but making more of a point to do it regularly helps keep our mind frame positive. And then the last tip they have is to stay connected. So reach out to friends or family members who can provide you with emotional support and practical help. So I know for me, sometimes I call friends or I call my mom or somebody that I can talk to, if I'm needing advice or sometimes just to vent. But having those people, maybe you don't even vent to them or talk to them, maybe just getting out and going to lunch or having someone to do an activity with, go see a movie. It just kind of depends on what you want to do. Self-care looks different for everyone, so it's important to find out what you want and what you enjoy. It may take some trial and error. You may try a new activity and go, no, that's not for me. And that's okay. You can try something else and see if that works for you. So I'm going to turn it back over to Heidi, and she's going to tell us what is helpful for her regarding self-care.
So obviously, as Ashley said, there are a lot of different things that we can do for self-care. It is important that we're not just doing things that we enjoy, because our life should be things that we enjoy, but it's also things that are going to be nourishing to our body and soul. So they are going to be low stress, and it's going to be something maybe that is a little bit more relaxing and calming. For me specifically, there are a lot of different things that I like to do, but specifically, there are 3 that I really enjoy. And the first one being crafting. I love creating things with my hands and being able to use the creativity that's going on in my mind and having a physical representation of that. So there's a lot of different crafts that I like to do. I do enjoy just drawing and painting, but lately I've tried a new hobby because I wanted to learn something new as well, and that is crocheting. So it's kind of nice because it is routine and relaxing. However, it can be something that does cause stress if I put too much pressure on myself to finish something in a certain amount of time, or if I feel like I'm not doing as good of a job as I want to. So if it's going to become something that is something of a self-care for me, I need to make sure that it is something relaxing and calming. Another thing that I really like to do is going swimming, which Ashley said as like one of the first points that she talked about was getting exercise. I don't necessarily do it for exercise. I do it because there's a lot of energy in my body and it needs a way out. But also water is a good way for self-regulation. So being in a body of water helps your body feel calmer. It gives it a sense of calm. I know that's not the case for everyone, but it just so happens that that does work for me. So I really enjoy going swimming. Not only that, but also it's outside, and we need vitamin D. Our bodies need it to process the other stuff going on. The other vitamins in our body can only be processed when we get that vitamin D. It boosts our energy and also boosts our mood. Again, that has to do with self-care. The last thing I love to do, and it's my favorite hobby of all time, is reading. And this is a very much key thing for me to do every day. It is my unwinding tool. It is what I use to be able just to quiet my mind a little bit. And so I feel like it is a great tool for self-care. Not everybody is into that, and I realize, again, that these are very personal. However, what I will say is there's a lot of different opportunities to try one self-care technique, like reading. You can read a physical book, or you can read an ebook, or even listen to audiobooks, because that still counts as reading. So there's a lot of different ways and a lot of different things that you can do to help take care of yourself and making sure that you're feeling that. And Ashley wanted to share a quote about that as well.
And some of you may have heard it before, but there's a saying that says you can't pour from an empty cup. So, and that just means if you're drained, if you're physically and emotionally drained, then you have nothing left to give anybody else. So just making sure that you're refilling your cup, which is kind of like your soul, right? Your mental health. Just making sure that you're taking care of yourself so that you can be there for other people as well. You need to lean on people for support, but other people sometimes need to lean on you as well. So just making sure that you're taking care of your mental health.
Yeah, so today we obviously talked a lot about all the different ways that we can use self-care, and we learned how everyone is different, but something we all share and have in common is that we all need self-care. It might not all look the same for everyone, and it might change from each circumstance, but we can't ignore the importance of prioritizing our physical and mental health. Well, thank you so much for having us on the podcast today. It was great to be able to share some of the things that we use for self-care, and also some of the things that Ashley looked up from the National Institute of Mental Health.
Thanks for all the great info, ladies. I made a list of things that I want to start doing. I hope you did too. Well, that about wraps up our episode. As always, if you're wondering how you can help, you can join our coalition meetings. You can also support our youth and family programs with a tax-deductible donation or food gift cards. And if you have any questions, you can email us at info@reachcouncil.org. That's info@reachcouncil.org. Or you can follow us at Reach Council on Facebook or Instagram. Thanks for listening to our show. Stay tuned for ongoing monthly podcasts from our Reach teams on all things prevention and recovery. So remember, life is full of choices, so choose happy and choose healthy. Bye.